Back to throw Garoppolo under some pressure. He is brought down by Quinn Williams. Wow, what a play by Darnold. That's an incredible interception by Marcus May.
The Jets raise the curtain on the second half of their schedule with a Monday Night Football showdown against the rival Patriots. What's going on, everybody? We welcome you to the Numbers Game presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sports book, now in New Jersey. I'm your host, Dan Graca. Pleased to be joined, as always, by my partner in crime, Cynthia Frelund of the NFL Network. Cynthia, how are you this week? Monday night week, it's always an exciting time, is it not?
The second one in 2 seasons? Absolutely. I love a good Monday Night Showdown, and I hear your weather is good, so I can't be bragging about my California weather too much because you kind of have the same thing going on there.
Now this is like September weather, but in November. We'll take it. Any which way we can get it, we will make it ours here. But before we look ahead to the Monday night game, let's rewind and look back at Sunday's 35-9 setback to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Jets came out, scored on their first 3 drives, but they were all field goals, unfortunately. But Sergio Castillo, for the second game, filling in for Sam Ficken, did his job, made a 55-yarder on his 30th birthday, no less. Other positives, I think, here for this team, Cynthia. You look again at Denzel Mims. Only 2 catches in this game, but you see some of the tools. You see the things that made him a second-round draft choice by this organization, and the future is so bright for this youngster from Baylor.
I like when you look at the next-gen stats, what they have on Mims. Now, the next-gen stats show air yards per target. So in the past 2 games, he's had 10 targets, 112 total air yards, meaning 11.2 air yards per target. He obviously caught 6 of those, 84 yards. That is very promising because the way that the next-gen stats weaves it all together is with his expected catch rate. And if you look what was expected versus what he did, he exceeded that expected catch rate by 4.4%. Those are great signs for things to come, especially considering he was in tight coverage, meaning that's a harder ball to catch, and he still exceeded the coverage expectations.
And the coaches are trusting him too, right? As I said, this is only the second game that he's played in his young NFL career, but he was on the field for 55 out of 57 offensive snaps, so he's getting the bulk of the work here, and you just hope that maybe Monday night is going to be the game where finally, you hear the coach talk about it all the time, where the 3 starting wide receivers, Mims along with Jamison Crowder and Brashad Perryman, can all be on the field together just to give a little glimpse of what this offense potentially can do.
Yeah, I love this one. And if you're playing fantasy, you absolutely need to be watching that Jamison Crowder injury report because there are a lot of people who are on buys, COVID question marks, etc. You do not want to miss out on Crowder on this one. On
the flip side, you look over the defensive side of the ball, Cynthia, and once again, Quinn Williams continues to stand out. Had a few tackles, had a couple of plays in the backfield, nearly had a sack of Patrick Mahomes before he threw the ball away. And again, you're starting to see this guy, who was the 3rd overall pick in the draft a season ago, start to show that talent and those tools, which makes him such a highly commanded prospect.
Yeah, when you look to see what he's doing in his evolution of each game, it is becoming very promising because he hasn't been in great situations. And even watching how, adjusting it for context, you want to make sure to say, okay, well, if he looks better and better in each game and they know he's getting better and they're adjusting for him, then his expectations and exceeding those expectations are a big factor.
All right, let's do a little prop bet, get one out of the way here early on in the show. We were just talking about Denzel Mims. He's only had 6 catches so far in his brief 2-game NFL career. But how about this one against the Patriots? Over under 2.5 grabs for number 11.
I think that I want to go at least 3 grabs in this one for him. Now, we saw Braxton Berrios kind of vulture most of the targets if you're playing fantasy, but I think it's going to get spread around even more in this game. I think that the passing game is actually going to see a nice uptick in this situation, in this matchup against this defense. So I think at least 3 catches. What do you have?
I'm going over as well. I think that he's going to be a little bit more active in this offense. And as you said, I'm kind of encouraged by some of the things you're hearing as far as the injury reports that these other receivers might be on the field, have to share the wealth a little bit more. And then the opposing defense here in New England, those are more guys that they're going to have to account for here. So I think Mims will find an opportunity to make some plays. I'll agree with you there with that over the 2.5. Now, the trade deadline in the NFL came and went on Tuesday, and the Jets snuck in one more move before the deadline, and that was trading linebacker Avery Williamson to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Spent 2.5 seasons in green and white, Cynthia, but Good guy on the field, good player on the field, and also a great guy off the field as well. Steelers are getting a good one in for Avery, not just because they're in first place and they're undefeated, but this is a guy who has a little bit of familiarity in that Steelers system, played under Dick LeBeau, the old coordinator, during his time in Tennessee. Carrying over to the Steel City, he should fit right in.
Yeah, the Steelers really needed to replace Devin Bush, right? He's gone on the injured reserve, and this defense is the anchor of their team. So it is a favorable situation for them to go out and get a guy like Avery Williamson who can really help them in both against the run and when they have to go into coverage. Now, if you look to see where the Steelers have been a bit vulnerable or where they could be potentially needing to shore things up, it's in coverage, and they need to keep that run game strong. I think they're giving up something like 3.4 yards per attempt in between the tackles. That's sixth best in the NFL. They need to keep that strong because if you look to see what's happening with their air yards allowed, it's a little bit more than you might imagine.
Still more to come on the Numbers Game, presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sports book, now in New Jersey.
Welcome to Bet365, the world's favorite sports book. You can bet on football, basketball, baseball, hockey, MMA, and soccer. You can even make a bet while the game is still being played. Yes, you can. But here's the best part. Bet365 is now available in New Jersey.
And welcome back into the Numbers Game, presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sports book, now in New Jersey. Dan Graca alongside Cynthia Frelund of the NFL Network. And Cynthia, Monday, the first of two matchups with the New England Patriots here in the 2020 season. Of course, the two squads will finish up the campaign in Week 17 up in Foxborough. Two clubs met on Monday Night Football last season in a game that was won by the New England Patriots, and Jets have not tasted victory on Monday night since Week 1 back in 2018. A guy by the name of Sam Darnold was making his debut that night in Detroit against the Lions, and things worked out pretty well that evening for the Green and White.
Well, yeah, and that's funny because I'm obviously from Michigan, right? So, of course, the Lions are going to be the one, when we're talking about this now, that gave it up on Monday night when Sam Darnold was making his debut. Because why not?
Let's go back to Quinn Williams. We talked on him in the first block here. He's really jumped off the film in the last couple of weeks here, as I said, starting to flash some of that potential. And specifically, you look at what he's doing as an interior defensive lineman. You know, a lot of times those guys we know aren't going to be the ones with the inflated sack numbers. Those are for the guys on the outside. Most of the time, the D linemen there, like Quinn, multiply double teams, and you're starting to see that, which I guess is a sign of respect. But among interior defensive linemen, he's first in stops with 24. Second in stuffs with 10. And again, he's proving to be a handful for opposing offensive lines.
Absolutely. So you want to think about stops and stuffs in terms of how they stop other teams from earning first downs. So if you're looking on first and second down, and of course on third down, which we see more visibly, but on first and second down, he's really turning it up. And you're really starting to see him become a force, a problem to reckon with. And if you think about interior defenders, you have to think about how the league is evolving. There's more quick passing this season than we've seen in years prior through the first half of the season. So quick passes favor interior defenders, as in they have a better opportunity to get there in time because, you know, guys coming from the edge, it takes an extra step or two, and you have to kind of figure out with time. If the ball's already out of your hand, then a guy like Quinn Williams becomes even more valuable given how the evolution of the NFL is going this season.
Those quick passes, that's the influence from the college game, which is now bleeding further and further from Saturdays into Sundays on the field, as we know that that's taken over the league, especially with a lot of those spread concepts and so on and so forth. LaMichael Pirine, the rookie running back out of Florida, starting to see more and more work on the field. Last week he had 10 touches in the game against the Kansas City Chiefs, but if you go back even a few weeks, you're starting to see that workload increase, right?
Yes. So since week 6, 59% of snaps, it's been him. That's almost twice as many as Frank Gore. So you're kind of seeing the passing of the torch, perhaps. And you're also seeing 10-plus touches in each of the past 2 games. So this is a situation where, especially in this context of this game, because the Pats have been very generous to opposing running backs in terms of rushing yards allowed per game, this could be a situation where LaMichael Pirine could be really, this is a good fantasy play. This is a good situation for him for first downs and keeping the Jets offense moving the chains.
Speaking of, let's go to another prop bet here. Might as well involve LaMichael Pirine. How about over under 56 yards on the evening for the rookie? What are you leaning?
I'm going over in this one. Clearly, with the moves at the trade deadline, they are looking towards the future. And the future is, what do we have at this running back position? And just like we said a couple of weeks ago, and again last week, they're keeping this momentum and this testing and figuring out what happens with Pittman going. So for me, I think it's going to be at least 60, maybe 70 yards, because look at the matchup. The Patriots are allowing over 120 yards per game to running backs on the ground. So I think this is a great opportunity to really get him going, seeing if the inside or outside zone rushing schemes that they want to try to run and whatever they're tailoring for him is going to work or not. So I think this is going to be a game that features Pittman.
Speaking of offense, speaking of points, I know I said a little bit earlier here that the Jets have struggled scoring points in the second half, but let's do a little bit of a fun prop here. And I know that it sounds pretty easy, but you know what? Let's have some fun here. Which is going to be the Jets' higher scoring half here, the first or the second?
So I'm going with the second in this one. And this seems improbable. It seems unlikely because if you've seen when the Jets have been scoring in previous games, like you said, it hasn't really been in the second half. So when I look here at what happens in divisional games against the Patriots, Adam Gase knows this defense really, really well. This defense has a bunch of question marks in terms of who's playing and who's not. You're going to wait for the injury report on Monday to even be sure. But ultimately, in this one for me, I think they're going to figure it out. I think Dow Loggins has some things planned. I think they're really scheming for this one in particular. And I definitely think in this game, they're going to add momentum. So maybe come out strong, but that's great. We'd love to see that. But I think add momentum as the game goes along. Get Sam Darnold in that rhythm, especially if all the receivers are back.
I agree with you. And you know what? Here's a very, very simple explanation, Cynthia. They're due. Right? Bottom line, they're due here. It's been 3 games where they haven't scored after halftime. I think that they're going to break out of that streak here and do some good things offensively after halftime. We're going to do some more things coming up next here on the Numbers Game, like segue into the opponent, the New England Patriots, see what they have cooking here for this game on Monday night. This is the Numbers Game presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sports book, now in New Jersey.
Good, man. It's a pretty day. Beautiful day. You go, baby? Yeah, you too, man. Good luck. Hey, same, bro. Let's ride. Let's ride. Hell yeah, fellas. Come on, baby. Come on, we need this. Come on, baby. Oh, got it! Got it! Got it! Yeah! Ole! 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 Hey! What's up, buddy? Good. How are you, baby? Good. Good to see you. Good to see you, man. Good luck to y'all.
And welcome back into the Numbers Game presented by Bet365. It's the world's favorite sports book, now in New Jersey. Dan Graca alongside Cynthia Frelund. And Cynthia, Patriots. Patriots week is always a special one, right? But so far, their season hasn't been special for them, at least not what we're used to seeing from them. They're 2-5. They've lost 4 in a row. They're winless on the road. A little bit of different of opponent that the Jets are used to seeing come into MetLife Stadium.
First time with 4 straight losses since 2002, which is a little bit not Patriot-like at all. And it's and just so you know, the last time they lost back-to-back division games, the Jets were involved, was in 2015.
Lost last week to the Buffalo Bills by 3. Cam Newton had a fumble there at the end of the game when they were potentially driving down for the tying or go-ahead score there. But that has really been a theme with Cam so far this year. Turnovers. He's thrown 7 interceptions to only 2 touchdown passes, but he has 6 rushing touchdowns, and that's always been a theme with Cam throughout his career, given his athletic ability that he can make plays with his arm, he can make plays with his legs, and certainly that's something that Greg Williams and his defensive unit are going to have to account for.
Absolutely. If you look over the past 2 games, Cam Newton actually has the lowest passer rating in the NFL. It's under 50. It's 46.8. That's also a function of the fact that he is missing a bunch of wide receivers as well. They are incredibly injured also. So this is a situation where I'm going to go with Marcus May is going to have a great game because of the opportunity there and the fact that Cam's style seems to fit what May's been doing really well.
All right, how about another prop bet for this game? This time we'll do one involving the aforementioned Mr. Newton. Over under 200 yards passing for the Patriot quarterback. What do you think?
I'm going with under in this one. 200 is too many for me because I don't think Cam Newton is going to have open receivers. enough to connect for as many yards. Now, I do think he'll have a good day rushing on the ground, but I don't think it's going to be a good day passing through the air. I think this is a game where you think about a lot of rushing yards. I think that's the way to go there. That's the more sure thing.
I agree. We're always in agreement with these. I mean, you're not copying off my test, are you? You're not like cheating. We're not going to, I mean, no, I agree with you for all those reasons. As you said, they're so banged up. Remember, they made a trade with the Miami Dolphins earlier in the week to bring in some more help at the receiver position. So they are hurting in that department. And I think that Cam won't exactly go off when it comes to padding up those passing numbers in this game. Now, on the flip side, you think about the Patriots. Bill Belichick, defense, that's always been a theme here for this run for the last couple of decades here, but they're having their struggles this season, no doubt. You look at that Pat defense, the most points per game that they have allowed in the Bill Belichick era so far.
Yeah, this is not a Bill Belichick-like situation when we see what we're used to with that, something like 24 points per game. That's the most allowed, like you said, in the Bill Belichick era. And then Stephon Gilmore not playing unsure, not healthy probably, if playing. I thought he was potentially a trade target in this one. So for me, this is not the defense that we're normally used to, so it means opportunity for the Jets offense.
Absolutely. I mean, anytime a former defensive player of the year is not in the lineup and there's some uncertainty as to whether or not he's going to be able to go in this one, that's going to make the offense's job a little bit easier. Cynthia, let's check out the schedule here real quick before we say goodbye. And after the Monday night affair is in the books, little off week for all of us, a bye week for the green and white, and then they're right back at it on the road, a trip to the West Coast, out to your neck of the woods, Cynthia, to take on the LA Chargers. For Cynthia Frelund, I'm Dan Graca. This has been The Numbers Game, presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sports book, now in New Jersey. Enjoy the game, everybody.